actual live customer I'm working with right now. I have changed the names to protect the innocent and the guilty, but no, I'm only kidding. So this is actually a presentation that I gave them, including kind of a results piece. Okay, so you'll get a sense of what we do with clients at this level, how I advise them. Okay, so one thing that's very important that you may find actually very challenging is that when you get into looking at enhancing and improving partnerships in terms of collaboration and cooperation, etc., setting objectives is actually not that easy. Okay, when you really start to think about it. And what gets even harder is how do you set the goals, the hard goals you want to go back and measure. Because remember what I said, virtual distance metrics can analytically show you the level of virtual distance you have and how it's affecting certain outcomes, right? And it's very interesting to work with clients and see how they struggle with the outcome metric that they want to look at. Okay, so anyway, very important to get objectives straight. I'll show you where we are with this client in a process check. Then most of this is going to be, actually, so I'm going to have to have them do their own because I already did the analysis in this deck. Or we pause. Right. All right, I'll pause in the middle. I won't show you the analysis after I give you the situation. Okay? So, for this particular client, and this is a relationship with a pharma and a CRO, because I'm working with a pharma company, but the group that they're working with, that I'm focused on, is the group that handles all the data in clinical. Okay? So their clients are both CRO people as well as internal people at the organization. And they handle all data for everything in the company. Very, very large pharma, European-based. Okay, they're headquartered in Europe. So, it's an interesting background story because the pharma company put together a work-from-home project, right, where they introduced this idea of being able to work from home. And actually, the executive who saw me speak at another conference brought me in initially to address some issues they were having from work from home. And what ended up happening was that after about 2 or 3 interviews, it became really painfully clear that it wasn't just work from home, and it wasn't just in the US, but we really had to look at the whole worldwide situation in order to get a handle on what was going on. Okay? So their initial objectives for the project was to ensure that all the team members on both sides were continuing to contribute maximum value, regardless of where they worked. Okay? They wanted to try to establish some reliable metrics for assessing and improving virtual team performance. And again, we'll probably talk about this later, but I have a hunch that a lot of you don't have quote-unquote team metrics in your performance plan. Okay, and if those are not there on some reliable scale, that can cause some difficulties.
And that we would really like to have them.
Right.
It's not just that we don't have them, but we would really like
Exactly, exactly. And not just like team stuff like for Mercer. And I worked for Mercer, so, or if any of you work for with the big consulting houses, right? And to not just any team metrics. It really has to be the virtual team metrics. They wanted to establish virtual best practices to reduce virtual distance within each of the organizations as well as across the organization. Okay? And one of the things that was starting to pop up was a problem with trustful relationships. Right? As they made this kind of work from home transition, it had ripple effects into the global organization, and they were starting to worry about degradation in trust. Okay? So one of the things they wanted to address was to understand how relationship closeness or trustful relationships, how they degrade, and then how you fix that degradation. So that was what I had talked to the executive about when we first started this project. And then what we normally do is have a kickoff meeting, and his managers came up with these 4 or 5 other objectives, one of which was that it became really clear among his managers that they really felt that they had very dysfunctional teams that were unsuccessful. And it was interesting to the executive I was working with because he wasn't expecting to see these, actually. So